What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? I'm John, and this is 3 and Out Podcast, and here's the plan. Because we had a really late night grinding on a couple Monday Night Football games. Sure beats digging ditches. And the end of that Seattle Texan game was rough. I mean, it slogged on until well into the night. I was like, you know what? Let's do a big mailbag today. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. I had a million questions from everybody, so I'm probably going to try to answer about 50. We're going to go rapid fire. Probably split this into 2 videos over the course of the day, but that will be the game plan today. And then we'll have Stuckey on later this week. We'll react to the Thursday night game, which is a pretty big one. Minnesota traveling to the Chargers. That's a long travel for a short week. And probably do some college football stuff as well. So stay locked and loaded. We got a lot of content coming as we head into week 8, I think it is, in the NFL. Technically, I think week 9 in college football. So buckle up. We're hitting our stride. And it's crazy how fast it's going. I mean, it's almost Halloween. Before you know it, it'll be Thanksgiving. Then it'll be Christmas. Then it'll be the playoffs will be here. Then I'll have a kid. And life will change forever. But we still got a little time. So let's take a deep breath. At John Middlekauff. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered here on the show. Before we dive into anything, here's what I got to tell you about. My friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast, Gametime. Best ticketing app in America. If I lived in Toronto and I saw these tickets are not cheap, there's no way I wouldn't attend one of these games. That place is going to be bananas. Now, do I like Toronto's chances? I do not. I think the Dodgers got a gentleman's sweep written all over it, but going to a World Series game, I've been to a couple. They're badass. So if you get the opportunity, if you live in Southern California, the NBA, I'm recording this. Somehow the NBA is tipping off October 21st. October 20. I remember when it used to tip off in like early November. They're moving that bad boy up. If you want to go to a basketball game, college, pro, obviously football, concerts, comedy shows, we got you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN, JOHN, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Let's dive into the mailbag. Okay. Didn't realize how much of content of yours that I follow. I enjoy your fair takes. Not everyone can say that, but I appreciate you. My question is about Daboll. I agree the Giants should give him another year, especially since he isn't there's not a great candidate for head coaching this cycle. My question is, do you think a coach like him, who is volatile and is in high pressure situations, charging into the medical tent, overly aggressive sideline actions and interactions, is something that can be changed? Chargers Harbaugh is animated, but it seems he is far more controlled. Meanwhile, Daboll looks unhinged and may not be a good leader for this team. Jim Harbaugh is also over 60. I remember him early on in his 49er career. He was as volatile, if not more volatile, than Brian Daboll. He would get in tiffs with other coaches constantly. He was insane, which was awesome. Now, here's the thing. When you're insane and you're energetic and you're winning, everyone loves you, right? Those GIFs over the years of Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and Will Muschamp kicking everyone's ass are really fun. Well, they're winning national championships. When you start doing that and losing, it's not as fun. So your personality is your personality, right? My personality, your personality, we're all wired a little bit differently. Obviously, Brian Daboll is just an on-tilt, edgy individual. Now, I think with age, you definitely chill out. I actually stumbled upon, I was trying to fall asleep after the podcast on Monday night. I'm laying there, it's 11:45. She's asleep, so I don't want to turn on the TV, so I grab my iPad. I know the blue light close to your eye is not good, but it's I need something. I can't turn on the light to read a book. Not that I would, but if I wanted to, I couldn't anyway. So I started going to YouTube, and I grabbed my iPad, put in an earphone, and I watched this clip on 60 Minutes Bill Parcells. Somehow the algorithm knows me well. From 2004. He had just been hired by the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe it was after his first year. And even people were saying he had chilled out a lot. and he was like 62 at the time. Like, as you age, it's hard to have the same energy and ferocity that like Nick Saban at 70 years old, while relative to the rest of human beings is pretty intense, nowhere near as intense as he probably was at 55 years old. It's a natural cycle of being a human. So yeah, I mean, I think that the Brian Daboll you're seeing now is the guy you're getting if you keep him another year and if it goes well for the foreseeable future. I know the season is not over yet, but what college quarterback this season has impressed you the most, and do you think could end up being the number one overall pick? I don't know if I've seen a guy that I would feel comfortable drafting number one overall, and I think we got to be very very careful about this because if you could do it over, right, the Titans would take. Actually, if the Titans could do it over, what they would do is they'd take Abdul Carter number one, and then they would trade into the first round to get Jackson Dart because you could have had Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart. Instead, they have Cam Ward, who, again, I'm not jumping off the ship on that, but we got to call a spade a spade. It hasn't gone well. So, like, I think we got to this kind of situation where the top quarterback had to go really high. And it's like, this guy's not going to be good enough to ever live up. Mac Jones is resurrecting his career. Mac Jones isn't a first round player in any draft, let alone this quarterback inflation draft. So I think you got to be very careful. Like Ty Simpson is really good. He's on a stacked team with an elite coaching staff, right? I've seen other guys, Tua, Mac Jones, have a lot of success in that program. So I couldn't draft Ty Simpson number one overall. I got to watch Fernando Mendoza a little bit closely or closer, but I had a buddy who works in the NFL, high up, like number two executive, was at one of his games and was really impressed with him. I think it was the Oregon game. And he's like, listen, after he threw that pick six, and then for him to bounce back and lead them on a TD drive, like it was really impressive. Physically, he's got all the skills. I said number one overall pick. He said, no, I couldn't go that high. And then there's the argument of like, well, if you think the guy's a starter, who cares? Draft him at number 4 or draft him at number 30. It's all the same if you think he's going to be the starter. I'm like, yeah, there's a little more pressure when you take a guy really high. So, like, I haven't watched South Carolina so shitty. I haven't been dialed in on Sellers, who clearly it's not going that well there. Nussmeyer, who I've watched a decent amount. I don't know if he's banged up, but he looks not good. Pavia is an unreal college player. I don't know if he's an NFL prospect. Dante Moore, obviously the Penn State game was awesome, and then the Indiana game was kind of a come back to earth moment. Again, he doesn't have to come out. My overall take, and I haven't studied every single guy and watched every single snap, I don't see many guys that I would feel comfortable drafting in the top 10 right now. That doesn't mean like Jackson Dart. I wouldn't have drafted Jackson Dart in the top 10 either. And look at him. He looks like a very promising, like you can find good players in the 20s in the second round. So I think we need to get back to that. Draft other players and take quarterbacks in the second, third, and fourth round. Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. Like you can find solid quarterbacks that are almost undervalued. And I think sometimes you overvalue. So it's like buying a overpriced stock. It's usually when you get your ass handed to you. And I think that's happening a lot with these quarterbacks. I heard you mention a couple times with a little disdain in your voice that Kevin Stefanski and Browns GM get passes by the media just for being Ivy League alums. Does this mean you are an anti-intellectual, or is there another reason you distrust them? By the way, as a Charger fan, I love your take on Brandon Staley. You're either looking at, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on the audio, I have multiple degrees. I have an undergraduate degree. I have a graduate degree. My overall take is my degrees are from state schools. No one cares. If I was a Syracuse guy or a Northwestern guy or one of these prominent, media schools, I would probably be discussed differently with the cool kids in the media. Not that I even want to rub elbows with these people. Ultimately, my point is the media values their education really, really highly. If AI does what a lot of people think it's going to do, it is going to have a dramatic impact and to me negate a lot of things in academia, especially higher education, right? Because like, why do I need you? And I'm telling you right now, I can foresee the future on this one. The media is not going to go quietly on that because that's going to almost, I would say, negatively impact something that's really important to them. And I just see a lot of these people in traditional media that really value their degree from their school, which I'm jealous of. Like, I went to Cal Poly. I would have a lot of pride if I was like a Florida alum or Ohio State alum or a Texas alum, with my athletic programs. I don't have that. So I guess there's a jealousy to that aspect for me. But when it comes to the Ivy League, like, they're just viewed as really smart guys. And I think the media gives passes to people, especially in football, when they go, well, he's a smart guy. It's like, yeah, well, he's losing. It's like, well, he's really, really smart. He must know something that we don't, because they value education really highly, right? It happened with Sam Hinkie for years. It's like the process fucking blows. The best thing they got out of it was this 7-foot guy who's always injured and now always complains. It's like, it did not work. We have to acknowledge that, And I think Sam Hinkie is a great example. He's like, well, he's so smart. He's got it. No, maybe he doesn't. And I see it in football all the time. Like, when they think you're just a dumb football guy and you start losing, they destroy you. But Andrew Berry, who, again, I have nothing personal against. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I know people that have worked with him that like him. I know a lot of people that know Stefanski really like the guy. I think Stefanski's done a good job given the circumstances. My whole point with their situation is they are 100% treated differently than Trent Baalke would be in their shoes. Because I've seen Trent Baalke lose. Everyone takes a giant dump all over his entire career. It's like, oh, Andrew Berry's having a pretty good draft. Well, his team blows. He took 2 quarterbacks. Now, if you want to tell me all of this was out of his hands, right? But he keeps saying, like, no, we did that. And then the Flacco thing, like Mike Tomlin just told you, he doesn't even feel like they respect the business. That's what bothers me. And where I get on board with Tomlin, the Flacco move, the amount of little respect you have 2 rookie quarterbacks. Are either of these guys good? I don't know. But like Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders just being in a room with Joe Flacco would benefit them. I don't know. Flacco's just played in the league for 2 decades. Has been around countless Hall of Famers. Has been a Super Bowl champion. Has been a guy that's been benched. Has been a guy that's literally seen it all. Has been a young player where a lot of people thought was overrated. Has been a good player that people thought was underrated. There's nothing that he doesn't check off that could really benefit every day Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders being around. And good organizations would have valued that. Well, to me, the Browns and their GM value things, which I'm pro stock market. I like, I enjoy making financial bets on things and viewing them unemotionally. But I'm talking about companies, not actual individuals on a football team. And that's how I feel he approaches it. And it was just embarrassing. And they do a lot of embarrassing things. And I've given them a pass for the Deshaun Watson thing because it's like pretty clearly on the owner, even though they're outspoken of like, we did it. I just think that they get treated differently than other people who have the same results that are viewed as just football meatheads. That's my overall point with the take of the Ivy League thing. Because if Andrew Berry was just, he had gone to San Diego State, I don't think the coverage would be the same. That is the overall gist of my take on this situation. I also don't value, like, I was around growing up some multi-million-dollar farmers that didn't graduate high school. So it's like I come from a world where, and listen, I got a graduate degree. So it's like my parents pushed education. I'm not anti-education. I also think it can be extremely overrated. And having worked in a field now around a lot of people with traditional media backgrounds, I'd say we look at it a little bit differently. I would say that's fair. But like I don't besmirch, if that's the correct word, those guys for going to the Ivy League. But I don't think it's really debatable that they get treated differently, and specifically the GM. That if we just take, another franchise with their record, they would get absolutely dumped on. Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook now has new promos every single day. We talk a lot of football on 3 and Out, but there's always something to bet. We got the World Series, baby. Week 8 kicks off later this week as well. But if you haven't tried your first bet on Hard Rock Bet, there's still time for you to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but $150 in extra bonus bets. If you're already betting on the Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app, you know what that means. Wednesdays are the last day to use your legendary rewards drops. Open up the app today. You could have a bonus bet, or who knows what's in there. More drops every Thursday. The rewards and promos are nonstop, baby. As a Bears fan, I'm not used to getting a lot of media coverage because there haven't been many bright spots in years past. However, people are quick to hype up teams like the Chargers and the Packers, even though they have clear weaknesses. Obviously, Caleb and Ben are still working things out, but curious as to how you see the Bears. Even though we have played great teams, we are 4-2 and the defense is looking great. I would say the difference is the Chargers have Jim Harbaugh, who's been winning for almost 2 decades now in every football team that he ran, right? And I would say the same thing for the Packers. They've been winning for 3 decades. Last year, they had a down season. They made the playoffs. The year before, they won a road playoff game with the same coach and the same quarterback. So it's like you get the benefit of the doubt. It's why whenever I see these people that like wish Josh Allen sucked, it's like, when are people gonna criticize his performance last night? Like, yeah, he had a bad game. Have you been watching him for 6 years? He's a fucking dominant player, right? I'd say the same thing for Lamar. Like, the only way you can criticize Lamar is like when he struggles in the playoffs. Like, I'm not crushing him for a bad regular season game. Who cares, right? There are certain players that are on a level of like Jamar Chase can have a bad regular season game. It's football. It happens, but it doesn't diminish his like status in the league. And other guys, like on a weekly basis, we're judging Caleb Williams. You know, and I honestly thought, like, obviously last week their defense was remarkable. They made Spencer Rattler look like a UFL quarterback. DeAndre Swift has looked sweet. I thought Caleb did not look good. And it's really hard. Now, if your defense is going to be awesome and your running game is going to be awesome, you can get by with an average quarterback. But I do believe that it's difficult to just sustain winning once you play better teams, right? Once you play the Lions and play the Packers, if Caleb's he was just running around constantly. It was just like, it was kind of bizarre, but they were kicking ass and they win the game pretty easily, and no one talks about it. But there was one thing I saw. It's like, well, it's not like I would feel a lot better about this team if he looked good operating for Ben. I just don't think he really has. Middlekauff, you hate Caleb Williams. No, I don't care about Caleb Williams at all. I wish he was an awesome player. I wish all these quarterbacks were awesome players. I would rather watch good quarterbacks. I literally watch football for a living than shitty ones. Like, we got to watch Carson Wentz on Thursday night. Not really looking forward to that. As a Cowboy fan, I was wondering your thoughts were on their position over the next 2 years. Obviously, their defense is too bad in order to be a competitive team. But considering 4 first-round picks, along with the other picks, I think they could have a shot at making a great roster. Also, I hate Jerry Jones, but he usually does well in the draft historically. Do you think they can make an NFC championship for the first time since the 90s in the next 2 or 3 years? Well, how old is old Dakota Prescott? I'm pretty sure, I'm going to guess 33. Dakota Prescott is 32. Just turned 32 this summer. So, modern medicine, health, training, no reason he can't be a really good player at 33, at 34, at 35, at 30, like for the next 3 or 4 years. Look at the 49ers. They transitioned off a bunch of defensive guys, and they drafted a defensive lineman, a defensive tackle with their first 2 picks this year. Both guys play a lot, and the defenses look pretty good. And are they going to be like Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa level players? Probably not. But can they be solid starters on a good defense? Looks like it. So I think you just approach it like you're going into the draft, drafting defensive players, whether it's the best corner, whether it's the best, if you can find a Roquan Smith, whether you can find a defensive tackle or a defensive end, and you just keep picking defensive players, right? You've invested heavily in the offense. You've drafted a bunch of offensive linemen. You paid the quarterback. You paid CeeDee Lamb. You paid Ferguson. I would imagine you're going to pay George Pickens. If they don't, that would be a pretty big red flag. And to me, it's just about investing in the defensive line. If you told me their first 2 picks this draft in the first round, let's say they use them both, let's say the Cowboys end up going like 8-1, and the Green Bay Packers, are picked 25. So you get picked 20 and 25, and they pick 2 defensive linemen. I don't think anyone would quibble with that. But you can't just be like, I kind of like this Jeremiah Love. In fairness, Jeremiah Love would be pretty sweet on their team. But you got to take defensive linemen. You have to. Question for the next show. USC fan, starting to feel a little discouraged with Lincoln Riley as a coach, particularly play calling. Am I right to feel like we can get more out of him? I think at this point in time, he kind of is what he is. You know, I think you can recruit better. One thing that he had at Oklahoma was their team was stacked. They had NFL offensive linemen, they had NFL running backs, they had NFL wide receivers, they had an NFL quarterback, they had NFL tight end. I mean, some of those teams he coached before he came to USC were, I mean, offensively were Mark Andrews, CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown, Mixon, P. Ryan, Orlando Brown, I think Creed Humphrey, right? Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray's the backup. I mean, that's like he was like we got Makai Lemon. Like yeah, Lincoln used to have about 7 of those. So I think you just got to keep recruiting. Uh, Notre Dame's in a better spot and built up better than Notre Dame right now, or than USC. Now I completely disagree. You know, Coward goes on this rant of this game needs to stop. You watch that game, it's like, no, this game does not need to stop. They need to play it every single year. Now, I get USC is like, well, we still have to play Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Washington. It's like they get to pick and choose their own schedule. It's like, well, Notre Dame, let's come on to the Big Ten, which feels inevitable as these conferences continue to consolidate. But watching that game at night in the cold, I mean, that's not really going to be Lincoln's deal, right? I mean, I would say most of the time, and listen, part of playing in the Big Ten, you're going to play in some games in October and November on the road at night. Like it might not be the greatest weather. I would say, you know, Lincoln Riley's teams are kind of built for sunshine and scoring some points when it's going perfectly well. But does he know defense well enough? He has a GM that he hired from Notre Dame. I actually just started following him on Instagram like last week. Chad Bowden, I think his name is. Really, I read this LA Times article. I sent him a DM. I'm like, you know, I read this article. Your story's pretty cool. Just how he kind of came up at Cincinnati under Freeman, Notre Dame. How most people didn't think the GM would leave, and all of a sudden he tells them like, I'm going to USC. I think he's originally from LA. His dad is I think former GM, I think, of the Cincinnati Reds. Grew up with the Collinsworth family. It's a cool story. And clearly, I mean, really, some of the quotes from the Notre Dame coaching staff, like really highly thought of. And that's the one thing that's different now in college football. Like Lincoln, you coach the team. Like I just came from Notre Dame. Like let me pick some of the players. You know, let me help isolate. These are the type guys we need. Because sometimes coaches, let's face it, like most guys aren't Nick Saban. Most guys aren't Urban Meyer. A lot of coaches are bad evaluators. Based on what McDaniel said at his last presser, basically throwing Tua under the bus for being so bad. Where's the GM and the owner not stepping in on the state of affairs for the organization for something like this? If they're not going to let McDaniel go, yet that's fair. But shouldn't someone say something to address this dumpster fire? Hot take: why do we need to address every dumpster fire? You know, I don't quite get it. Like sometimes things go bad, right? In sports, and you see it in college football all the time. It's like I didn't need Florida State's AD or president or Wisconsin's AD or president to give me a statement if you're not going to do anything. Like, yeah, we get it. You suck. They're always like, the standard is not good enough, but we're still evaluating. Like, yeah, no shit. So are we all. Like, why do we need these statements? For optics? There's not a word that I hate more than optics. I like results. I like reality. To post something like Stephen Ross comes out with a statement, what's he going to say? If you're not firing anybody, no one gives a shit. So, yeah, you just kind of let this situation go. One thing maybe I'll talk about tomorrow, maybe I won't, is they must have owners meetings going on right now because I saw Woody Johnson gave he was being interviewed and said, like, basically got Aaron Glenn's back of saying, well, what's he supposed to do? Our quarterback can't complete a pass. And literally everyone on social media, everyone in the media universally is like, God, Fields sucks. This guy's one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. Woody Johnson then says the same thing, and everyone's like, asshole, you can't say that. Why not? Well, what's he supposed to say? You know, Justin Fields is coming along. No, he feels like they just robbed us. Now, if you want to say, hey, Woody, you just let the coach and GM give him that contract, that's insane. Like my mother could have told you, like, it struggles from the pocket, not a great thrower. Just got benched for Russell Wilson, who's like on Twitter talking shit about Sean Payton. It's like Russell, uh, listen, I'm not saying Sean Payton has the highest approval rating with everybody, but you definitely don't. Like I just let bygones be bygones. You got paid to leave. You guys hate each other. He definitely hates you. You pretend that you love everybody, but I just like it's not necessary. And I would say the same thing about these statements. Like what I just don't know what Stephen Ross or the GM is going to say. There's literally nothing they can say to make anything better unless they say we're going to fire Mike, and at the end of the season, we're going to cut Tua. Then people would be happy, but they're not going to say that. A few weeks ago, you mentioned taking one of those blood food allergy tests. Was wondering if something they found was useful and you would recommend doing. It's a little overwhelming, I would say. I found out I'm lactose. I can't have dairy. I'm not supposed to have dairy, and gluten not ideal for me. So it's like, wait, literally everything I eat. Now listen, like as you get older, you can try to avoid the carbs, but I think you kind of got to be realistic about it. Now some of them, it's like I'm severely allergic to shallots. It's like probably should pick and choose when I eat avocado, stuff like that. But just yeah, you should probably not eat dairy or gluten. That's can be a little overwhelming. It's like, well, so I don't get to put cheese on anything. I don't put sour cream on my Chipotle bowls anymore. But it also like, yeah, I got to milk, and I would say dairy products has always been a little hit or miss. I would say with my stomach, but the gluten one, that hits deep, man. I love a good bagel sandwich. I love pizza, love pasta, but it's like I got to choose. Do I want to be a fat ass, inflamed, swollen, you know, uh, guy with low energy, or do I want to be vibrant and skinny? So we'll see. I'm just starting this journey. Uh, I don't know how it's going to go, but that was, yeah, it's a lot. I'll tell you that much. It's no secret that you're not a fan of the Falcons. But what is it about them that makes you hate them? To me, they're no different than any middling franchise. It's funny. It's like, I promise you this. I don't hate anybody. I really don't. My life's too good to hate. I remove that from my go-to emotions. It's a waste of my energy, and I don't know any of these people personally. Now, I would say my take on the Falcons is twofold. I think their owner's kind of douchey, and not because I like hate rich people. I'm this is pro capitalism show here, so good for him. I'm glad that he had successful business career. We celebrate that here. Honestly, I admire it. But like, put himself in the Hall of Fame last year. Whenever he talks, this is about him. Like, he's a little much for me. Now you could argue a lot of owners are like that. True. I do think they carry themselves like they're a little more successful than not. And I do think 2 years ago when they got rid of Arthur Smith and what's his name, his president, that's also like runs his will. I can't even think of his name now. And obviously the GM, clearly they made the right decision by not hiring Bill Belichick. But they also acted like they knew what they were doing, and it was all Arthur Smith's fault. Where again, I don't know Arthur Smith personally either. One night I had some beers with him years ago at the combine. But anytime that like an organization just points the finger at one person and the people picking the players and kind of running the organization are like, it's that idiot, not me. And then that guy leaves and the same shit just continues to happen. It's like, no, you guys are kind of fraudulent. And listen, this league uh, there's so much money on the line. Everyone wants to get their hand in the piggy bank. But I just, something about it. I'm with you. They are not like that bad. They're not the Jets or the Raiders. Their stadium's cool. But like, and listen, Raheem Morris is universally liked by everyone that I respect, in the business from the Shanahan tree. I mean, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan love the guy. So, like, I have nothing against him. But I think we have to acknowledge, like, you acted like Arthur Smith was an idiot, hired this guy, and it's been a debacle. I mean, I saw the clip. I'm sure you did too if you're a Falcon fan, of him being asked after the game about the 10 men on the field on the big third down. I mean, this is this isn't 4 games into his career. I mean, he's been there now a year and a half. It's pretty embarrassing. I just think they're the way they carry themselves and talk and the outcome are just two different operations, you know? And I feel like they tried to not get treated like some of these other organizations that lose a lot. And it sure feels like since Matt Ryan fell off a cliff, they've been losing a lot and kind of some embarrassing losses. I mean, this year, think about it. They just lost to the 49ers with their second stringers, and they've gotten blown out by the Carolina Panthers. I just have a hard time, I think, sometimes in the football business when like no one ever wants to take responsibility. They always want to point the finger at someone else. And I'm talking more like in the front office than, coaches will backstab each other too, but if you're the offensive coordinator and your offense sucks, it's hard to hide, right? But with a GM, it's like, well, he wanted that player, he wanted that quarterback. I didn't hire the coach, the GM wanted him. If I'm the president, I just think that happens a lot. In the Bruce Allen types, who was with Washington forever. I'm trying to think. The Atlanta Falcons president. Why can't I get his name? Greg, that's not who I'm looking for. Rich McKay. There's just any organization that has the Rich McKay types, I'm just out on, and I don't take that seriously because he wants credit. If it went well, he'd be front and center. But when it doesn't go well, like I just run the Arthur Smith $1 billion will. Like I'm just here to kind of support everybody. The Kevin Warren types. It's like you guys are just. I can't stand people like that. When I was with the Eagles, it was Joe Banner. It's like they want the credit, but when shit goes bad, they want to stab everyone in the back. There's the league, and honestly, big business is full of those type people. It's like they don't own it. They're not really in charge, but they run like a power playing role. I would always red flag organizations with those human beings. Okay, real talk. Ever have one of those need it right now moments? Like the dog just chewed through the leash, kid's project needs glitter glue tonight, and somehow the toilet paper is gone again? Yeah, that moment has happened to everyone. That's where Walmart Express Delivery comes in clutch. Get all that stuff, pet stuff, school stuff, household stuff, all the stuff in as fast as 1 hour. 1 hour. That means chargers, diapers, candles, light bulbs, laundry detergent, real life rescue items. And it's all from Walmart. Just hop on the app, order what's needed, and boom. It's at the door before a toddler melts down or before halftime is even over. Yes, game day food can be delivered in an hour too. Try Express now and get free delivery on a first order with promo code EXPRESS. That's free delivery on a first order with promo code EXPRESS. Walmart Express Delivery in as fast as 1 hour. Unheard of. Until now, that is. Promotion valid for first express delivery order, $50 minimum, subject to availability. Restrictions apply. As a Ravens fan, wouldn't it be a blessing in disguise if the Ravens were truly to be this year's team from hell? What does going 9-8 or 10-7 and beating up on slump busters and losing in the divisional championship round do? I get it. It's a loser mindset to tank for the rest of the year, but you already are 1-5, and making the playoffs would just be Lamar saving Harbaugh's ass for a second time. Not to mention that you would not have a top pick in each of the rounds in a stacked edge class. And we have had a revolving door of geriatric players on the edge DN position since Suggs left. It also gives you a chance to move off some of these big contracts, like Linderbaum and some other young players due to be paid soon. To me, it's like in the next couple weeks. If you rattle off a couple victories and look completely different, it's football you should try. To me, if the Bears beat you coming off a bye, it's over. And it makes way more sense to be a 4 or 5 win team and have the 10th pick than it does to end up with 8 or 9 wins. So I'm completely with you. The Harbaugh thing, it's like, let's just play it out. You win 5 games this year. Because it's like, oh, Lamar's coming back. In theory, I mean, didn't he miss practice yesterday? But Lamar was there when they were losing. Like the defense was horrendous, right? I mean, their issues are Lamar was already kind of running around trying to make things happen, and it didn't matter. They were getting blown out. I think through 4 games, didn't they have like one of the highest scoring defenses in the history of the league? I think they gave up more points through 4 or 5 games than anyone in the league history. So I have a hard time seeing them. So the 6 games, so it'd be 11. So to get to 10 wins, You'd have to go 10-1, or I guess that'd be 11 wins. You'd have to go 9-2. Like I don't know. I don't see that. That'd be go 10-7. To go 9-8, you'd have to go 8-3. Like the team we saw is going to go 8-3. Now, I think we talk about them like what they've been, but what they've been is not what we saw this year. I'm with you. I'm anti-tanking, but like once you start like 2-8, it and you have like your quarterback, yeah, I don't think it's the worst thing to lose some games and get a higher pick. Especially like historically, you guys have drafted well, and you never draft high. Imagine if you had like the seventh overall pick. What's going on, John? Love the pod. Was wondering if you could break down the team behind you a bit, and if you're looking to possibly expand. We got a big team. We got a great team. We got a lot of people on this. The volume. Very lucky to have a lot of people. This I know a lot of you just hear or see me, but all I do is talk into a microphone. Uh, it starts with we've had a couple main producers over the years. James, who actually just officially left because he's on Joe and Jada. He lives in Jersey, and that podcast is like a rocket ship. I was actually with him in New York. So for a long time, he did all the video, and now Shane, uh, who has been with us, I don't know, feels like a year. It might be less than that, at least with my show specifically. So anything that you see video wise of like our live streams or the ads that are implemented in there, to me, just telling me, kind of running the business behind the scenes of when ads need to be read. Uh, this is this week. Hey, we need to do this. I'm very dependent on those people to feed me information, and then they're tied in with like Josh. Uh, I call him Goldie, who's kind of like I think his term is technically the GM. Like he runs Colin's podcast, and then he oversees a couple other ones. So it's like kind of all under his umbrella, and we just kind of now we're kind of a self sufficient operation here, but from James to now Shane to Adam, who runs the audio, who makes me sound better. Any echo in my room, he's loading audio for countless different, different podcasts on the network. But also, like, I screw up. There are things that maybe if someone rings the doorbell and I leave, like things that get edited out that I don't have to mess with. So from an editing standpoint, I do nothing. I'm very dependent on Adam and Shane, and then Jackson and Noah. Jackson, intern Jackson, and Noah, who you don't know, but I think I've talked about him before. He was the one feeding me the Baker Mayfield 25-1 for MVP. You got Jackson playing football at Montana, a little walk-on status, slow white. I think slot receiver. Maybe tried to play outside. Noah's like 6'5" shooting guard. I think he played at like Duquesne. Uh, so we got some athletes behind the scene, and they just crush it on the social media stuff. So listen, I've been in this podcast business, and I try to do a lot of this stuff myself. When I had a previous show with my buddy Guy, and it's hard and it's impossible. And I am very very lucky that this operation, ran by Logan, kind of runs the content aspect for all the volume, but has introduced me to these guys and got them on my team, and it's been good for everybody, and we got a cool group. And just again, they just like sports, which helps. So it's like I've been very fortunate to work with normal, good, talented people because again, I could talk into a mic 7 hours a day, and if I wasn't associated with Colin the Volume, you wouldn't know I'd existed. But from the social clips to the videos to the audio getting cut and loaded, so when you get in your car now at 7 a.m. in New York and you're commuting, I had nothing to do with that. So I can't. I mean, I hope they know how much I appreciate everything they're doing behind the scenes and how talented and good all these guys are because they're fucking ass kickers.